if you're still investing, what are you still investing in? Hey everyone, Dave K here, and today I want to talk about the stock market. The stock market, Dave. Yeah, I want to dive into my thoughts on the stock market and how it ties into the current situation and my thoughts on the market. You may be asking yourself, well, Dave, what are you doing? Are you buying? Are you selling? That sort of thing. Let me dive into it here today. Let's get to it. So before we jump into the stock market and my thoughts on the current situation, I want to provide a couple of different thoughts and disclaimers here. First of all, as you already know, I am no professional when it comes to financial professional, investment professional. That's not me, not what I do. Simply just sharing my thoughts here. And there's the second piece of this I want to jump into, which is kind of why this is relevant for me and what I want to tie back into it for, which is it's kind of about mindset at the end of the day. How you manage kind of mentally handling a situation, because I know it can be tricky for a lot of people. Maybe a lot of people are losing a lot in the market right now. You're not alone in terms of just the downturns in the market. It's something to keep in mind, and you want to make sure that you're, again, taking care of yourself mentally from that perspective. And another thing on this you may or may not have known, initially when I was first starting my channel, I thought about a couple of different things. I wound up starting off as a gaming channel over here on YouTube, and you can see some of those old videos if you'd like. But at the same time, I was thinking about it, and I almost made a video on finance, investment, savings, that sort of thing. Again, no expert, no professional on this, but I am very interested in the topic. I like to learn more, I like to watch videos on it, and I like to just think about it and talk about it as well. So that's where I'm at on the situation. And let's dive into it, share my thoughts with you on the market. So the first point I want to speak to is you've probably seen on the market that a lot of values are dropping, and I think it's safe to assume part of the reason for that is a lot of people are worried about the current situation. They're worried about the illness, they're worried about the impact that it will have on companies and that sort of thing, and so a lot of people are selling some of their investments and some of their stocks for that particular purpose. And one thing I want to dive into over the course of this video, which I'll speak to, my thoughts, my preferences, my opinion on this is, and I heard someone else speak to it on their YouTube channel, I like this a lot too, so I want to tie this around here as well, is it's considering how this is going to play out in the long term. Of course, it's a scary situation right now, but there's a bunch of world leaders coming together trying to resolve this situation. They're trying to make sure that the economy has what they need and businesses have what they need to survive in order for us to move forward strong and, in a positive direction. So I don't really want to be betting against those people, right? I personally am not drawn to sell a lot of my investments because I believe that a lot of these companies will come back. I believe the world leaders and the government will be able to support the economy and will be able to, again, see these businesses come back because, again, the economy just kind of keeps all of us, we need certain things, right? We can't necessarily get by without, I want to say without like banking or some sort of infrastructure around that as one example, right? Transportation, we need cars, that kind of thing. Maybe, you could say we don't, but we've kind of built the infrastructure around these things, so I think that we do. But in short, I'm saying I hesitate personally to sell because I think the values are lower than they should be. I'm not sure it makes any sense to sell at this rate, and I believe that in general, the market will come back up over time, and I'm trying not to, again, stress or panic about the situation because although we're seeing a downtrend right now, and who knows how low it will go, let's be honest, there's no idea to really know what that's going to look like. I believe at some point we're going to be heading back up again and things will come back around, right? This illness will pass and the economy will be healthy again at some point. So as long as I'm comfortable feeling like the economy is going to come back at some point, I'm going to continue to hold and hope that things come back at some point. Now, another piece of this point is another reason why people might be selling, and that's work, obviously. A lot of people might be selling because they're finding themselves in a situation where their expenses still exist, and yet they're unable to work. And I completely understand this is a very scary situation. It's a very challenging situation. And on top of that, I personally am able to continue to work, right? I'm in a position where I'm very fortunate. I'm working remotely and I'm able to continue working remotely for now. And you'll see a video on my channel a few days ago. Am I staying in Florida through past April? And I speak a little bit at that point where, I'm currently working remotely. I don't know how this will change the situation. I think that things will be okay and I'll be able to continue working this way at least through May. But I don't really have 100% clarity on that. So that's where I'm at right now. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to continue to work, and that allows me to not need to touch any of those investments, whereas I understand some people will need to. For example, if you're finding yourself needing some source of revenue or some income that you can spend on rent or other essentials during this time. I completely get that. I'm fortunate to not be in that situation, but that's a selling type situation that I definitely completely understand. So for me, personally, if possible, if I'm still working, that sort of thing, I'm continuing to invest, right? I'm continuing to contribute to my 401k to at least get that match if I find myself in that situation. Let's say, for example, I'm putting the money, again, to match what that match is, and the rest of it, maybe I'm needing to save personally in my savings account just in case things go bad and I'm going to need some more after this situation. Now, that's an important thing to consider here as well, is I want to make sure that I have enough of a savings, at least me personally, that I can get by if I find myself without a job during this situation, because I know that the percentage of people finding themselves without a job during this situation is unfortunately quite high. So I want to make sure that I'm building up a savings for myself to make sure I can take care of that, or have a savings to take care of that, in addition to, or for me, even prior to that investing piece. But if I still have that ability to put that certain percentage to my 401k to get that company match, I'm doing that. Or if I have a different, for example, investment outlet, maybe you have an IRA. An IRA is something good that I like to look into as well, in terms of an additional kind of retirement account that you can set up, individual retirement account, or other investment options you may have, just personal investment portfolios in the market. If I still have that bandwidth, I'm continuing to do it because, for example, I'm seeing it as an opportunity to keep investing where I think that market will come back up to a more healthy rate at some point, personally. So the next thing you may be asking yourself or asking me is, Dave, if you're still investing, what are you still investing in? Aren't you worried a lot of these companies might go out, might go under, and that sort of thing? And I think that is definitely a concern, and it's a fair question to have. For me, I think one of the always the most stable investments is finding one of those index funds you may like, for example, an S&P 500 index fund or that sort of thing. At least, again, for me personally, that's where I like to try to keep majority of my investments. Again, that's pretty common in those 401ks as well, is ETFs or index funds that will follow one of the particular markets, S&P 500 or that sort of thing. And I think those are, again, reasonably safe in terms of the grand scheme of safe options in the economy. I think that's one of the safer options. Me personally, my thoughts, again, no expert here, no professional, but I think that's one of the safer options. And it is down as well quite a bit, I think substantially. We're looking at a big downswing in the market. I want to say at least 20% on even some of those index funds as well. I'll have to go back and look at the most up-to-date numbers, and sometimes I have to video these videos and it takes a while for them to come out, right? I only have so much time to make videos. But at least I want to say it looks like something 20% at least in terms of some of these funds swinging downwards. And it's still an opportunity to invest in those funds and assume that at some point, I believe, it is an assumption to assume that at some point the economy will come back and the United States will come back stronger. That's something that I believe, and that's why I feel comfortable making those investments. I feel like, again, that's a safer investment option for me, but I can understand different people looking at different investments as well, and even not investing or even selling some of their shares. But this is just my perspective, my take on this sort of thing. Now, you may be on the other side of the equation, and you may be saying, Dave, I see this as a huge opportunity. I want to invest, get all the good stuff right now. And I'm seeing airlines, I'm seeing cruise lines, which are down like 70, 80%. Is this a good opportunity for me? Should I jump into those? And I am not a professional. I've never worked in the financial sector industry doing analysis or anything along those lines from that perspective. Maybe, just, again, I do the computery stuff, I punch numbers and that kind of thing, but I don't do any investment stuff or anything like that. So I couldn't necessarily advise on some of those cruise lines, those airlines. I think maybe you want to look into some of the data around that. And I think the big reason why people hesitate on those is they're worried that those companies don't have the money to pay the bills while they're not earning anything, while everyone's staying at home and no one's flying and no one's taking cruises. But again, that's my assumption on the situation. And I'm not sure how much capital some of those companies have saved up, and I'm not sure how much it costs them to get by, to survive during this time without that income coming in. So again, I would say research that more on your own if that's something that you're interested in. But some of those companies are down substantially, 70, 80% drops, whereas some other things are down substantially less. I could see why people would see that as a potentially an exciting investment, but I could also see why people would see that as extremely risky as well. And at the end of the day, it just depends on what you feel you're comfortable with and what you feel is right. And do that research and make sure you're figuring out what's the right call for yourself. So I touched on a lot of the pieces I want to touch on here. First of all, making sure I'm not over-investing, right? You want to make sure that you have that savings account built up and you have what you need to get by before you consider investing. I am, if possible, on top of that, trying not to sell anything, trying not to pull anything out if I don't need to. Again, I could see why I might need to, for example, to get by, or I could see why others would, based on concern, but I'm trying not to let, again, concern get to me, try not to panic and stay calm, and that's why I like to focus on gratitude and positivity, and you'll see some of those other videos as well. I've been putting out a good quantity of gratitude and positivity videos, and I think that's especially important to keep in mind, and something to consider to yourself during this time, and just in general, is what are those things that are really important, make you happy, and how can you bring a smile to your own face each and every day. But talked about the over-investing, make sure you have enough saved up. Talked about personally, I'm trying not to sell if I don't have to, trying to keep normal investments with 401k and that sort of thing if possible, but I understand why people might not. And talked about some of those more risky and some of those less risky investments and options to keep in mind there. But that's, again, just my initial thoughts on kind of the stock market right now. My take, my plan for myself, if possible, again, is to keep that 401k going. But what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear your thoughts as well in the comments below. And if you like this video, let me know your thoughts. I'd like to hear if you liked the video. If you liked it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button as well. Another couple of topics I thought about addressing, potentially, if we're interested in this finance type stuff, just kind of while we're considering positivity, but also kind of calculation, making sure we're staying calculated, focused on our target. A lot of other topics that have always been of interest to me is, I've seen a lot of creators create videos on this too, I love to watch them, is does real estate make sense? Does it make sense to save up, buy a house? Versus does it make sense to just keep investing instead in the market? And then I've seen videos as well on other topics along those lines, like is a 401k a better way to go, or do I want to do some sort of IRA, something like that, or just build my own stock investment portfolio? And those are questions potentially I could address if I feel like they might be exciting. If you feel like they might be exciting, let me know your thoughts. But thank you again for being a part of the fun with me. Always happy to share these adventures with you. If you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell to stay informed of future adventures. And until next time, play on.